Hi guys. Okay, so we'll see if my video does an okay job of catching up. Looks a little slow, you know the drill. It'll get back on track. But go ahead and write in your notebook equations with fractions. That is today's lesson title. Okay, so up on screen, whenever this thing catches up, is going to be this green piece of paper. It's going to just be a way for me to kind of talk you through what sort of problems we'll be seeing. But I do not want you to write this, what's on the green paper. I don't want you to write this on in your notebook. Okay, this is for you to kind of like watch and listen to. So with this crazy equation with fractions, let's just kind of look at what we have here. We got a 3/4 and a 2x on the left. We got a 1/5 x with a 3 on the right. Okay. Now, the parts we hate, or most of us hate, are probably the 3/4 and the 1/5. Wouldn't it be great if those were whole numbers? Yeah, but we got to know how to deal with it. Okay. Well, if we just kind of follow the rules we've been doing, we could solve it just fine. Okay. So there are some kids who are completely comfortable with fractions, and they would realize that, oh, I first need to get rid of the variable that's on the right-hand side. So subtract 1/5 x on the right-hand side. Okay. That way, the 1/5 x minus 1/5 x would cancel out completely. But whatever I do to one side, I would have to do to the other. So you would have to subtract 1/5 x on the left-hand side as well. Remember, you're not writing this down. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. You're just following me here. So this is where the struggle is, though. A lot of us are not really comfortable with adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions. We learned it in 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade, whatever, but it's now out of our heads. Well, I'm just going to remind you. So we need to figure out what 2 minus 1/5 is. 2 whole is the same as 10/5, right? 10 divided by 5 is 2. 10/5 minus 1/5 is 9/5. So 2x minus 1/5 x would be 9/5 x. Yeah? Okay. I drop down to 3/4, drop down the equal sign, drop down the 3. So I have all my variables to the left side. Now I'm going to move the constants to the right. So the 3/4 doesn't have a variable attached. I need to move it to the right. Since it's a positive 3/4, I would subtract 3/4. Whatever I do on one side, I have to do to the other. 3/4 minus 3/4 cancels out. I'm left with 9/5 x equals something. The struggle here is figuring out what the heck 3 minus 3/4 is. So I'm going to do that off to the side. 3 minus 3/4. Well, when you add or subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator, which is why I had to change that 10/5 over there. So something over 4 is equivalent to 3 whole. That'd be 12. 12/4 is the same as 3 whole. 12/4 minus 3/4 is 9/4. So I'm going to put 9/4 on the right-hand side of the equation. Okay, is x by itself? No, I got to get rid of this 9/5. Now, think back to like 3 weeks ago when I taught you how to get rid of a fractional coefficient. Well, one way is you could divide by 9/5. But I taught you how to get rid of a fractional coefficient by timesing by its reciprocal. Remember that? Flip it. So if you times both sides by 5/9, what happens over here is this becomes 45 over 45, which is 1 whole. Okay, so we just have to figure out what this is. Well, if you're good at cross-canceling, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, cross-canceling, then just bait. But if you're good at cross-canceling, you would realize that these 9s are going to fall out of the equation, and you'd be left with 5/4, right? Even if you're not good, though, you could multiply straight across and get 45 over 36. But of course, you would have to simplify that. 45 and 36 can both divide by 9, and you would get 5/4 as your answer. Okay, so this is a way to solve it if you're super confident with adding fractions, timesing fractions, subtracting fractions. If you're comfortable with fraction stuff, then by all means you can do it this way. But what I'm going to teach you today is how to cancel out all fractions. Okay, it's an exciting day. I personally like this because I'm fine with fractions, but if I can get rid of them, cool. So let's just go ahead and we're going to put the actual rule, like what you do to get rid of the fractions. We're going to write it down and then I'll show you what I mean. So you're going to write this nice and big to yourself. Multiply both sides of the equation by, and then I'm going to pause for a second. Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to just multiply the entire side of an equation by something? The answer is yes. Remember our golden rule of equations? You can basically do whatever you want to a side of the equation as long as what? As long as you do it to both sides, okay? So that means I can add 500 if I want to, as long as I add 500 on both sides. I can subtract 2,000 elephants, as long as I subtract 2,000 elephants on both sides. You know what I mean? Okay. So multiply both sides of the equation by a common factor. Ooh, is factor the right word? Factor. It's not. Dang it. Multiple. That's the word I'm looking for there. Common multiple of the denominators. Denominators. Struggling a little bit today, sorry. Okay, multiply both sides of the equation by a common multiple of the denominators. Now, some of my kids kind of flub the vocab and say lowest common denominator, and it's basically the same thing, okay? You'll see what I mean when we do it. All right, so we're actually going to do this same exact problem that was on my green piece of paper. We already know we should get an answer of 5/4, but I'm going to show you a different way to solve it. I'm going to show you how to cancel out the fractions completely. So let's rewrite that equation. 3/4 plus 2x equals 1/5 x plus 3. Okay, so it says I multiply both sides by a common multiple of the denominators. Well, denominators, we know that vocab word. Numerators on top, denominators on the bottom. So you only got 2 fractions in here. Sometimes they all might be fractions or just one of them fraction, but we got 2 fractions. And what are your denominators? Denominators are 4 and 5. So off to the right, you won't have to do this every time, but I want you to do it this time. Okay, we're going to do one problem like so detailed, you know? So off to the side, just write to yourself. Denominators are 4 and 5. Okay, so those are your denominators, 4 and 5. Now, I said factor at first, whoopsie on my part, multiple. Okay, multiples of 4 and 5, a common multiple of 4 and 5. So let's just talk about multiples of 4. Well, basically you count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. We could keep going, but hopefully we don't need to, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing, but multiples of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20. Now, do you see one that they have in common? I do. So a common multiple, least common multiple is 20. Okay, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the least common multiple, but it just has to be a common multiple. like, for example, you could do 40. 4 goes into 40 and 5 goes into 40, but the smaller number, the better, okay? So 20 is a common multiple of your denominators. And we're going to actually multiply both sides by 20. Now, it would be a mistake for you to just go like this. It would be one big fat mistake for you to write your work like that, because that is showing me that you're just timesing 3/4 by 20. But no, you're not. You're doing the entire left side, multiplying the entire left side by 20 and the entire right side by 20. So how you show that you're multiplying everything on the left by 20 is you actually need to group up what was there, group it up, and multiply all of that by 20. Same with the right side. Take everything that was there, multiply it by 20. Now, hopefully you're thinking, oh, it's essentially distributive property. Yes, that is true, okay? Now, my notes on this problem are, we're gonna have a lot of steps, so it might be like, why are you showing me this? It's so long. But I'm really just trying to show you the nitty gritty math of it. But on the other ones, we'll just kind of not skip steps, but kind of, okay? So we take everything on the left times by 20. So essentially, this 20 is getting distributed to both of those terms, right? So you're going to have 20 times 3/4. And this is what I mean by normally I wouldn't write this step, but I'm going to this time, just so you're clear on what's happening. 20 is also going to get multiplied to the 2x. Drop down your equal sign. And then on the right-hand side, 20 is going to get multiplied to both of those terms as well. So 20 gets multiplied by 1/5 x. 20 also gets multiplied by 3. Once again, typically I wouldn't require you to write this step, but I want this first problem to be super detailed. Okay, if you are struggling right here and you're like, oh, we still have fractions to deal with, well, they will cancel out, trust me. 20 times 3/4. Well, as you may remember, you can write 20 as 20 over 1. You just multiply straight across. 20 times 3 is 60. 1 times 4 is 4. Now that does cancel to a whole number, but we'll do that in the next step. 20 times 2x is 40x. 20 times 1/5 x, so put 20 over 1. 20 times 1 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5. Don't forget your x. 20 times 3, 60. Okay? All right, so now let's just like simplify the division stuff. 60 divided by 4. You get a calculator, beep, boop, beep. That is 15. Okay, a pinky swear. Drop down the 40x. 20/5. 20 divided by 5 is 4, so that's 4x. Okay, and we get this. Now what I have in orange right here, isn't that a lot easier to look at than all of this garbage? I think so. Okay, now some of you are like, oh, Meineke, there was only like 4 lines of work over there. Let's just do that. Well, honestly, when you start learning how to do this well, you're probably going to go from this line down to the line we just wrote. These are just the mini steps in between. So for example, I'd be going like this. 20 times 3 is 60. 60 divided by 4 gets me to 50. 20 times 2x, 40x. 20 times 1 is 20. 20 divided by 5, 4x. 20 times 3, 60. Okay, so this would kind of be like your first line of work. I just wanted to show the kids who need those little mini steps. That's what's happening. Okay, now from here, we solve like normal. This was, last week. So I'm going to move all my variables to one side. I prefer the left side. If you want to move it to the right side, be my guest. Okay, so I'm going to move this 4x over. Since it's a positive 4x, I'm going to subtract 4x. Whatever I do on one side, I have to do to the other. 4x's cancel to nothing, okay? 40x minus 4x is 36x, positive. Drop down the 15, drop down the 60. So we put all our variables to the left, awesome. Now we're gonna put our constants to the right. So I'm gonna cancel out this constant of 15. Since it's positive 15, I'm going to subtract 15. Whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. And I'm left with 36x equals 45. Okay. X is not by itself, so to get it by itself, we're going to divide by that coefficient of 36. Okay. And then we have 45/36 as our fraction. But you got to remember to simplify. If you're struggling with simplifying, that's not something I'm going to cover in our class. So that would be something that ask me about in office hours or half time. Okay. Simplifying, 45 and 36 are both divisible by 9. 45 divided by 9 is 5. 36 divided by 9 is 4. So I get x equals 5/4. So it is the same answer as what we got when we did all the fraction stuff. Okay. Now, like I said, normally you wouldn't have these two lines of work in there, and you'd be going from this gross fraction equation to here, and then there. It's just a beautiful equation. Okay. Now, we're only going to do one check on today's notes. All right. So I just want us to know how to check when the answer is a fraction. A lot of times I give you answers that are whole numbers because I'm nice. But we do need to know how to check when our answers are fractions. Okay. So look at what's the original statement, not the 20s. Okay. Let's look at the original statement up there. So I had 3/4 plus 2 times our variable. Well, our variable is hopefully 5/4. I'm going to do 2 times 5/4. Hopefully equals 1/5 times our answer plus 3. Okay. So on a check, we're going to use order of operations on the left, get some number. Then we're going to use order of operations on the right, get some number. And we're crossing our fingers that they're equal to each other. Okay, so on the left side, I'm going to need to multiply these. Okay, so this is like 2/1. So 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 4 is 4. So I get 10/4. I'm going to drop down to 3/4. These have the same denominator, so I can add them up. 3/4 plus 10/4 is 14, not 14, 13/4. Sorry about that, 13/4. So 13/4, you can leave it as 13/4 if you want to know the mixed number. 4 goes into 13 3 times with 1 left over. So it's equivalent to 3 1/4. If you put it in a calculator, it'd be 3.25. Okay, so we can put that off to the side too. That's the decimal version. On the right-hand side, let's multiply up these fractions. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Okay. 5/20 simplifies down to 1/4. 1/4 plus 3, well, 3 whole plus 1/4 is 3 1/4, right? You can also do the decimal version, which is 3.25. So it works, okay? Now, I'm only going to do 2 more problems with you because really after that first step, this part should be known by now, okay? So I'm going to do 2 more problems with you. So we'll call this number 1. First one was just an example. Here is number 1, and yes, there will be a number 2. Okay, number 1, 1/3 minus 3/4 x equals 5/6. Fraction, and another fraction. So you got 3 fractions here. Ugh. We're supposed to multiply both sides of the equation by a common multiple of the denominators. How many denominators do you have in this problem? 1, 2, 3. You have 3 denominators. So your denominators are 3, 4, and 6. I need a number that all 3 of those numbers can fit into nicely. If you're not great at that mental math, then you can do this whole multiple list method. I'll do it one more time for you. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. 4. 4, 8, 12. Ooh, I got 12s there. Look at 6. 6, 12. There it is, 12. All three of those numbers fit into 12, okay? That's why I'm going to take this entire left side and times it by 12. Take this entire right side, times it by 12. That will cancel out our fractions, okay? Now, like I said, these little in-between steps, I'm not going to do it on these. I'll talk through it. I'm just not going to write it down. So this 12 is multiplying by the 1/3. So basically you do 12 times the top number. So 12 times 1 is 12. And you divide it by the bottom. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Look how that just cancels to a whole number. Beautiful. 12 also has to multiply by the -3/4 x. So I take that 12, I multiply it by the top, which in this case, I'm just going to drop down the negative now so I don't forget. 12 times 3 is 36. 36 divided by the bottom, so 36 divided by 4 is 9. So that'd be 9x. Okay? Now we multiply the 5, 6 by 12. Okay, so I'm going to take 12 times by the top. 12 times 5 is 60. Yes. 60 divided by 6 is 10. Look, this equation is the same exact amount as this equation. But look how much more just beautiful that is. It's way easier to look at, right? So my x is already on the left-hand side. Cool. I don't have any variables to move. Awesome. So I just need to move this 4 over, right? Since it's a positive 4, I gotta subtract 4. Whatever I do on one side, I gotta do to the other. 4's cancel out to nothing. I drop down my -9x. 10 minus 4 is 6. You got one last move here. To get x by itself, you got to get rid of that -9. So we divide by the coefficient of -9. Whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. 6 over -9, so -6/9. So you are going to have a negative fraction here. I'm just going to put the negative sign out front rather than top or bottom. You just put it out front. But you got to make sure this isn't simplest form, so simplify. This can be simplified. 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. So if we divide each of those by 3, we get 2/3. So final answer, x equals -2/3. Okay. Could we plug it in and check? Absolutely. For right now, we're just going to move on. Okay, here's another one. Uh-oh. 4/5 x minus half equals 3/10 plus x. You don't know why that little pen thing is there, sorry. Okay, so we look at our denominators, 5, 2, and 10. If you need to write the list, write out the list. But I know that a number that 5, 2, and 10 all can go into is 10. 5 goes into 10, 2 goes into 10, 10 definitely goes into 10. So I'm going to multiply this entire left side by 10. I'm going to multiply this entire right side by 10. Okay? So here we go. 10 times 4/5, so I do 10 times the 4, which is 40, divide by the 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8, so that'd be 8x. 10 times half, well, that's kind of mental math. What's half of 10? 5. If you don't believe me, do 10 times the top. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 divided by 2, 5. Boom. 10 times 3 is 30. 30 divided by 10 is 3. And then this is where a lot of kids forget. They think that only the fractions get multiplied by that number. 10 has to get multiplied by every single little term on both sides, okay? Everything has to be multiplied by a factor of 10, okay? 10 times x is 10x. So we multiplied every single little thing on both sides by 10. That's completely allowed because we did it on both sides, okay? This is so much more beautiful to look at though. So this is a regular variables on both sides thing. So let's go ahead and move our variables to one side or the other. You pick, okay? I always pick to move them to the left. So I'm going to subtract 10x on both sides. That will cancel to nothing. 8x minus 10x is negative 2x. Drop down everything. We got our variables to the left, so we're going to move our constants to the right. Since that's a negative 5, you're going to add 5 to both sides. 5's cancel. Left with negative 2x equals 8. My last move here is to get rid of that negative 2. How? By division, using division. Divide by negative 2 on both sides, and we get x equals negative 4. Okay, so that's the big thing. Look at your denominators. No matter if there's 2 denominators, 3 denominators, 4 denominators, you have to find that magical number that all of them fit into, okay? Multiply every single little term by that magical number, and it'll completely wipe out the fractions. I think that makes it just a lot easier to solve. Okay, so you have 2 practice problems. Here's number 3, here's number 4. Have them ready for class. So here you go. 3/4 x minus 1 equals negative 7/8. Okay, number 4. 3/4 x minus 3 equals x over 4 plus half. Now, side note, if you're looking at this going, you've never said that, you've never taught us that. X divided by 4 is the same thing. If you wanted to, you could write that, you could rewrite that as 1/4 x. Basically, there's a secret 1 in front of the x, right? And then you just kind of scoot that x to the side. So x divided by 4 is the same thing as 1/4 x. Okay, you could write it like that if you wish to. Okay, good luck, have fun. Thanks for watching. Bye.